master tracker file consists of many buttons and macros. To access the code in the buttons, first select the developer tab and then select the designer mode. Once you click that, you can double click on any of the button to see the code associated with it. Also, you can click different sheets, and if there's some code associated with that sheet, you get all the codes from there. So for example, our sheet is a supplier's master tracker, and we get all the macros written on this sheet just by scrolling through all of them. To get the developer tab itself, you go to file and then you go to options and then go to customize ribbon and then check and uncheck the developer tab accordingly. If it's checked, then you can see it. So now that we know how to look at the code of the macro, let me explain the logic behind each of them so that it'll be easier for you to edit if necessary. The unhide all sheets button loops through all the sheets and unhides them. In this case, all our sheets are unhidden anyway, so let us click the hide all sheets. So the hide all sheets again loops all sheets and hides all sheets apart from these two, dashboard and supplier's master tracker. So if I click unhide, now you can see that the macro is running and all the sheets will be unhidden once it runs. So now all the sheets are unhidden and you can see them, they've all appeared. The next one is update quadrant values. We shall look at this sheet, update sheet, at the end. The update quadrant values fills in this column based off this month. So it puts in whether a month is a quarter or based on the month. So May is Q2 and similarly April is Q2, January is Q1. Now you might notice that for this May and April and March you have annual. Similarly, you have for January, Feb, here you have so for example, this one, May, you have biannual. So this quarter generating system works for monthly suppliers, so based off the invoicing schedule. So if this is a monthly supplier or a quarterly supplier, then this column calculates directly based off the month. But if it's either a biannually or annually, it writes it down as biannual or annual based off this. So these values are later going to be used for computing the accruals, and that's why the logic goes this way. So for all quarterly and monthly suppliers, this value is based off the value of the month, and for all the annual and biannual suppliers, you get a biannual or annual as the quarter. Now this button here is a click first before sending reminders. So what this does is it basically goes through all the rows in the sheet and it computes for which rows we need to send a reminder. So for example, this value becomes a yes if this column value AL13 is not blank. So if we go to AL13, so AL13 is the reminder macro, that's what I called it. So AL13 is the one that's filled up based of this button click. So again, to recap, this button goes to AL13 and it selects all the rows that have to be sent a reminder. The logic that is followed is once a supplier's volumes are no and the month and the entry was made in is the current month, it means that for that supplier a reminder has to be sent. However, once a supplier, suppose there are two entries made in the same month for a supplier, then it becomes logical that only one reminder per supplier has to be sent. So this macro ensures that only one value of the supplier that hasn't sent in the volumes is notified. So once this is clicked, you can click either the send first reminder or send second or escalate, depending on the corresponding day that you are in the month. And you can access the update service tracker SOP to see which days to use the reminders. The send reminder button itself and all the reminders in general loop through all the rows, and for all the ones that have a yes based on the formula, so you can see like in the rows below, you can see the yeses, so you have to send them a reminder. So for all those rows that have a yes, it is going to generate an Outlook email with a customized message, and you can see the guide on how the message looks and how it works. Next button we have is create invoices button. So this one sends to all the suppliers that have a invoice creation status of to be sent, and they have a volumes status of yes, and for all such suppliers an invoice is created. So we can say that in other words, all the rows that have anything in the invoice creation status other than to be sent are ignored, and of course for all the to be sents the volume status has to be a yes. When you click this button, it takes you to your in my case the desktop, and you can change the setting the file folder path so that it reflects it saves on any folder of your choice. But if I go to desktop in my case and I go to invoices and I've stored mine here, I have all the invoices that are generated. So when I click that button, all these invoices are generated. The next two buttons we have here are the click first for accruals update and click for accrual update. So what this button does is, again, I have a column here called rough data, and okay, I'm going ahead of myself. First, when you click the accruals button, it goes through all the rows and it figures out what this status should be. So the aim of these two buttons is to figure out which rows have been invoiced, are to be invoiced, which ones have been accrued. So the logic that is followed is it goes row by row, and if it is a monthly invoiced supplier, so the invoicing schedule, so if that is monthly and the invoice has been sent, that means, or made, that means it is invoiced. And if it is the invoice is not made for whatever reason, so either the supplier has not been set up or it's an accrual. So if let's say it's a quarterly invoice supplier and this is the month of May, I'm not going to send them out an invoice. So that amount is accrued and it will be invoiced at the end of the quarter. So this button, these two in succession, ensure that we get all the invoiced or quarterly, or due to whatever reason they're split up accordingly. And you can, to analyze this, you'll have to click it and just read through this code. It's a very simple, it loops through all the rows and there are different conditions. So in this case I'm saying if the volumes are yes and the supplier has been set up and the month is either a Q1, Q2, Q3 or Q4 invoice, then you say invoiced in the column AH. So this is what these two buttons are about. And also what this button takes care of is you have this column that takes in the invoiced amounts that you have entered and it converts all the currencies to euro. So and this column is just a copy of this, but it converts the formula into a numeric based column, so we can use it in our pivot table. So this is roughly the structure of all the buttons and how you can access them and the logic they follow. Next we shall see how we can update these values. So I told you, let us look at a demo. So we look at how we can do this every month. So you would first copy paste from the invoice generator sheet, because this is a backend and it has all suppliers in the unique by uniqueness, and they don't repeat. So you copy this here from here and paste them here, and put the month you entered in all at once. So you have, I did that already, so I have July and I have all the suppliers. Now when you choose this value comes up from the invoice generator sheet, and the month data for, in my case, for all of them is June. So I do it before the month itself, and I go to, this is the year, so I put in the year, and all these values are generated automatically, and initially all these values are known. So when they're known, they would be highlighted with amber, and then you'd select this as either to be sent or not applicable. So depending on the type of the invoicing schedule of that supplier. So if this is a monthly, then it is to be sent, whatever this amount may be. If it is quarterly, then it would be not applicable, and similarly for biannually and annually. And once you do that, you would then ensure that this value, for example this supplier is IFCO, so I'd make sure that I link this cell with the IFCO sheet. So let's say, let's go to the IFCO sheet, and we go to June 2016 in our case, because that is our month data for, and I select the sheet, this cell value. So when I equate that, I get this. So this is just to say that eventually when we do get a value there, this value should be that. So this is all you have to do, and once you record this for all the suppliers at the start of the month, when you get the supplier values, you just go to the cost recovery monitor and fill in the value in the corresponding supplier sheet. So just copy paste the volume data, and once you do that, keep the file open and select this button, the update sheet button. The minute you click that, it's gonna copy each and every sheet from this workbook to the master tracker workbook. So indirectly you're updating this file by keeping the other one open and clicking the update sheet button. And once it's clicked, all these values that you have initially are 0 or some other values are going to change accordingly. So that is a short description of how you could update the sheet, and we have also seen the logic behind the macros and how you can access the macros. Thank you so much.